Hello and welcome everyone to our second breakfast webinar on China Digital World. My name is Daria Saxida Bogatai and I am a senior project manager at the CI Ljubljana. Today's event is organized within the May, the month of culture, that at the CI we are organizing every year. If you're not with us for the last time, we discussed about WeChat's do's and don'ts, and this time we will focus more on the e-commerce channels and also some e-solutions that came across COVID-19. So those of you who are with us for the first time, here are some technicalities. Well, this event will be held for about 1 hour and is recorded and broadcasted to Facebook. So also welcome viewers from this channel. At the end of the presentation, the speaker will answer all of your questions, so please write your questions in the chat. Now let's just say a few words about today's speaker. Domen Yere is an entrepreneur with 5 years of experience working with China. And he also co-founded the company IC Global, which brought the largest payment system Alipay into the CE region. They also helped the local brands to enter Chinese market through e-commerce channels, which we will also mention today. And Domen also studied in China for about 1 year. So now enough for the beginning. I would like to give my word to the speaker. So Domen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daria, for your introduction. And I would first to greet all the listeners from the other side. And let me just start and dive in to the second part of my weekly presentation. So like Daria mentioned, last week I was focusing on the WeChat and do's and don'ts. And today I will focus more onto the e-commerce. So what will you find out in today's presentation? So you will find that you need to have a different approach when you are doing and when you are marketing to Chinese. So we will just slightly touch about the product localization, also how the presence on the Chinese platforms are totally different. And also you are familiar probably with the influencer in the West. In China, they are called KOLs, which means key opinion leaders. And they have really strong influence on the buying decision when it comes to Chinese consumers. And also Chinese, they have different perception when it comes to the marketing content. Later on, we will also see what are the future trends in the marketing, which will also influence West from the China. And there are also very high standards when it comes to the delivery and all e-commerce ecosystem in comparison to the West. Also at the end, we will check a bit how COVID-19 has been handled through the digital solutions which Chinese have. So let me just dive into the Chinese market. So first of all, I always like to point out that China isn't like just one country, even though it is, but you need to see their provinces. Like I always say, look at like Europe. And then you would have these different provinces in China would be like one country in Europe, not just by the size, but more by the GDP. Because like if we look here, at the different provinces, we can see that only Shanghai here has GDP comparable to Thailand. Or for example, Beijing, it has GDP comparable to Iran, for example, have 80 million people of inhabitants. And for example, Sichuan, where I have also studied, and also probably you're familiar with Sichuan food, it has such big GDP as Sweden. So when you are thinking to enter to the Chinese market, you should never think as a one market, but it's a really, really diverse market. What here I would also like to add on, it's the consumers in the north of China have totally different taste from the consumers in the south of China. For example, it would be the same thing as if you would be looking the consumer in Sweden, in Europe, and we would compare them with a consumer in Italy. They are both drinking coffee, for example, but in Italy, they drink espresso. In Sweden, they drink more American style coffee. The same things go also in China. They have, in general, the same culture, but the differences between them are quite big when it comes to the consumer preferences. Another thing which I like to point out is that China population is distributed quite unequal. What I mean with it, you can see here on the east side of China, there is almost 50% of all inhabitants. And if we divide this China, like if you would here divide it on half, we can see that the right side, it almost presents 94% of all inhabitants. Even though now Chinese government really put a great efforts into the investment that they make investment in the infrastructure, so that they make, for example, trains, and they built like 40,000 kilometers of trains in whole China. So because of that, for example, if I just give you one comparison, if you want to travel from Shanghai to Beijing, it's like 1,200 kilometers. It's like the distance between Ljubljana and Amsterdam. And you can travel this distance in 4 hours and 20 minutes. So just imagine that you would be from Shanghai to Beijing in 4 hours and 20 minutes. The same would go also from Ljubljana to Amsterdam. But now what I want to show you is the basic differences between the Western consumers and the Chinese consumers in general. So Chinese, they shop much more frequently than the US counterparts. And also they are really like when they buy, for example, food for making the dinner or the lunch, they like to buy it totally fresh. On the other side, Americans, they buy on bulk 1 time per week. Other things which I would like to also point out is that when it comes with the customer service in comparison with the West and China, in China, the customer service, it's really responsive. Why it's so? Because in China, when they started to sell on e-commerce, the customers, they were really cautious if the products are counterfeit. And because of that, they always like to try to contact seller on the platform immediately. And the seller should immediately be able to respond to the customer questions and demands. And because of that, it's that if you want to sell to the Chinese, it's really important that you establish also really good and responsive customer service. Also, when it comes to brand loyalty, the Chinese, they're not in the same way brand loyal like they are Western counterparts. Why is it like that? Because in China, they prefer really luxury brands and they are brand aware. But when it comes to everyday necessity goods, they don't have so much favorite brand in a way like Westerns we have. So because of this reason, also all domestic brands and also foreign brands, they can market, and if they market a lot, they can also sell that everyday necessity goods because the Chinese in general, they don't have so strong preferences when it comes to the daily brands. Also, there is really different perception when it comes to online advertising, because for example, in Europe, if you see too much advertisement when you're online, it will just push you away. But for Chinese, the story is different. They are so they so like to explore about the brands that then when they see the ad, they don't see it that it would be like a pushy, but they see it as a new information. So in China, you can push a lot of AdWords when you are promoting and doing marketing in comparison to the West. Also, when it comes to the e-commerce ecosystem, it is really the big difference that in China, that they are usually all the brands, they sell their products on e-commerce platforms. On the other side, in the West, mostly brands rely on their own websites, and then the customer go to their own website and then they buy the products over there. But in China, mostly they are e-commerce platforms and the social platforms, which they drive customers at the end to the e-commerce platform, or even they can make a purchase into the social platform. And also how there is a big difference how Chinese gain trust about some brand or about some product, because in China, majority they always they're so much on the social media that they communicate between each other, and they look to others what they have bought, and then they also buy it. And also the big difference is that Chinese are really keen that they comment the things which they bought. So they put a comment inside in 75%. In the other side, for example, US consumer, only approximately 10% make a comment when they purchased one product. So this is the big difference. What would I also like to point out, even though there is a lot of different consumer segments in China, there is one prevailing consumer segment, which is Z generation, which is born between 96 to 2010. This population consists only 15% of whole population, but they do, especially at the new brands, they account for 25%. So we always need to consider that this Z generation, they're really affluential generation, and also we need to consider them to market because they have so strong purchasing power. Another thing which I like to point out, it's when the Chinese, when they look at the screen, they perceive the screen totally in the different way as we do in the West. Here is for example, the eye tracking when the Chinese consumer were looking at Baidu, and here is the eye tracking when Westerners are looking at the Google web search engine. So we can see that Chinese, they disperse, they're looking almost the whole site, even though it's concentrated still here on the left corner, on top corner, but still, if we look these red dots in the West, they mostly stop on the 4th line, but in China, they look over the whole site. So when you are designing, for example, the web page, but we also need to consider the web page usually should be the first, most importantly, that it needs to be phone friendly. Why it should be the phone friendly? I will show you in the next slide. So here we can see how much Chinese they buy from the phone. Almost 90% of the purchases are made via the phone. So when you are targeting consumer in China, you always need to focus that it's phone friendly. And also, like you can see here, for example, in the rest of the world, only 40% buy from the phone. Of course, this trend is now rising more and more, but still in comparison to China, it's much lower number. And also, you can see how often Chinese buy things on the phone, because they really like to use phone a lot, and because of that, many of them they're used to buy on the weekly basis, which if we compare with the rest of the world, the story is totally different when we see that there is less than 10% that they buy every week on something on the web page or something else. I have already pointed out these 4 major companies, the 4 major competitors in China already last time, but still I want to point it out again. So the main competitors in the China e-commerce ecosystem are Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and ByteDance. And I will show more into the detail which of these companies hold what kind of application for e-commerce or social application. So here we can see how much they spend users on every of this application of this group. So for example, in Tencent, for Tencent, they mostly spend time, as you could see if you were participating on the last seminar, you can see that they spent a lot of time on WeChat. Then the ByteDance is owner of TikTok and also the Chinese version of TikTok, Douyin, and they spend more and more time, as you will see in the next presentation, on the next slides. Also, you can see here Alibaba. Alibaba doesn't have so much social apps, but it has a lot of e-commerce apps, and they spend a lot of time on these e-commerce apps when they are browsing what they will buy today or the next day. And then it's the Baidu, which is the search engine, which is similar to the Google, and also Baidu have many other varieties of the social apps, but they are not so much prevalent than the other three which they were mentioned before. And how much do they get from this digital revenue by every of these four big conglomerates? As you can see, Alibaba Group is getting the biggest share, which is almost 1/3 of all ad digital revenue. They gain mostly from the different e-commerce platforms as a Tmall, Taobao, but I will more explain into the next slides. Also, ByteDance had got a lot just by the TikTok in Chinese, which is called Douyin. And then, as you can see here, for example, what is really interesting is that mostly this digital ad revenue in the West, it only has two duopolies. So Facebook gets and Google gets almost 80% of all digital ad revenue in the West. But here you can see that all this digital ad revenue, it's much more spread between these four big companies. What I would like to add additionally, when we look to the social platforms, there is one really interesting fact when it comes to the WeChat. WeChat, even though it's the biggest social media platform in China, which has more than 1 billion users, it doesn't get majority of the revenue from the advertising. They gain majority from the gaming. From the another side, if you look, for example, Weibo, which is also social media platform in China, their majority of the revenue comes from advertising. And if you look in the Facebook, almost whole revenue they get from the advertising. So here I would like to show you then how Tencent is gaining their revenue. So they get the revenue, like it's here mentioned, from the gaming. And the gaming in China, it's also really big industry. It doesn't mean that it's that they're gaming they're playing games, video games or mobile phone games, just the younger generation, but also, for example, 30 plus, or even sometimes you can see even 50 plus years old generation. They play different mobile games. But here we can see on this chart the most popular games in China, which are issued by Tencent company, which is also owning WeChat. So as here you can see this PUBG player battleground. It's similar game as the Fortnite, and it's in ownership of Tencent. And if you look here, they get almost $1.7 billion of revenue just from this game. And this is almost the same revenue which Weibo, which is another social media app in China, gains from advertising. Tencent gained just from this one game. So it needs to be considered if, for example, if you want to target gamers, that gaming industry and the gamers society in China, it's really vast and huge. And here I would like to conclude about introduction of Tencent, and that we go to the another big player, which is Alibaba. Alibaba has really huge ecosystem. For example, this is here on the left side. You can see, for example, for marketing, they have similar app as the Google has Google AdWords. Here is Alimama. And then, for example, for payment, I already have introduced that this is Alipay, which they make everything can pay with the phone. And when it comes to e-commerce, majority of you, I believe, they're familiar with AliExpress and Alibaba. AliExpress is for business to consumer, and Alibaba business to business. But what is more important is that there is also their own ecosystem, which they have only in China for selling for consumer to consumer, which is called Taobao. And then it's Tmall, which is from business to consumer, where the brands can sell. And then it's Tmall Global, which is meant for cross-border e-commerce. I will explain you what is cross-border e-commerce more into the detail in the next slides. And then you can also see here the whole other ecosystem of Alibaba, like Cainiao logistics system, which there is their own logistics, and then they have their own travel provider, and also they have invested in social media and the social video apps. So if we look then from the West, if we make a comparison with the Western ecosystem and the ecosystem of Alibaba, you could see that Alibaba has almost, I would say, closed loop. So it means that when the customer go to the one platform where it can be done branding, for example, in social media at Weibo platform, then can make a sales from this social media to the Taobao or Tmall e-commerce platform. And all this is also then supporting Alimama, which is, like I mentioned, Google AdWords. And as we see on the West, for example, in US example, there is, you are familiar with the Facebook and the Google AdWords. So the loop, it's separated. So the Google doesn't know what is happening so much in Instagram or Facebook. They of course they are connected, but they are not in their own ecosystem, because at the end of the day, they're competitors. And what does it mean for the Chinese consumer? So because of that, what is also really important, that Alibaba gains almost on the daily basis the information of 700 million Chinese consumers, which they usually access different apps of their ecosystem 7 times. And this can be seen also then, this ecosystem, because how important is and how much revenue it gains to Alibaba. So for Alibaba company, everything is what is important. It's important is what is going on in China, because some of the listeners could think that Alibaba, most of the sales do through that Alibaba B2B platform, which is meant that Chinese producers sell to the other Western distributors, but it's the opposite. Everything is happening in China between the Chinese businesses, between Chinese consumers. As you can see here, they generate like 90% almost of whole revenue is in China. Now I would like to touch ByteDance. Why is ByteDance so important? It is important because the ByteDance is the owner of brand TikTok and Douyin, and also, as you can see here, one really important news platform, which is called Toutiao. And how everything happened that ByteDance was able to develop so quickly from, for example, if you look here in 2012, they started this Toutiao, and then they gained so big traction and so much different customers on these different apps, because Toutiao has so good developed algorithm which served to the Chinese users when they want to search for the different news. They always recommended them the news which they are interested in, every consumer separately. And because of that, they applied this algorithm also then on Douyin. And then from Douyin, they just transform it also into the TikTok, all these findings. And why their algorithm is so good? Because it is used the whole ecosystem. For example, if the user is using Toutiao, then the whole ecosystem and their AI bases will remember that. And based on that, they will also put the recommendation when the user will be using Douyin, which is Chinese TikTok. They will know what the user was doing in Toutiao. And then based on their preferences, they would also give different recommendations on Douyin. And because of that, the user will really have a feeling that they know what the app wants to serve them. And because of that, the ByteDance, as you look here, here is the share of how much they get from the digital media, the whole revenue. So here you can see the ByteDance share of the digital media market was at the beginning really minor, and then on the basis that Baidu lose almost in 5 years, Baidu lose almost 50% of the ad revenue, and everything almost gained ByteDance. So this has really important, I would say, further circumstances and connotations, because why I will show you in the next slide. Here you can see that the trend is that short video is gaining a big popularity. So, for example, in 2018 in China, there was almost only like 4% of whole money which was used in ads. It was used in the short video. But then, in 2 years, everything have been changed, and this change have been mostly done on the search engines. So the search engines has been losing their ad value, and the short video was gaining it. And this has also big connotations then into the future at the West. What I mean with it? So for example, Google and Facebook are now dominant when it comes, as I mentioned before, when it comes to gaining all the revenue from the ads. But now the ByteDance with the TikTok is gaining more and more traction also in the West, and because of that, it's taking a revenue from the Facebook and also from the Google, and because more and more users, not just the younger generation of consumers and users, but also I would say the middle generation, start to using TikTok. And because of that, also then more and more ads are switching from the search engine to the short video. And now I would like to explain you more about e-commerce. E-commerce in China is really diverse, and it's mostly focused on these 5 big players. But this first player, Taobao and Tmall, they are coming from the Alibaba ecosystem. Then here is on the second place, which has 1/4 of whole e-commerce pie e-commerce pie in China. It's from Jingdong. And then there is a third player, because before in the past there was from Alibaba, Taobao, and Tmall, and JD. They had the biggest share of this whole e-commerce. But then it jumped in a new player, which is called Pinduoduo, and it's this Pinduoduo. It's a e-commerce which works more like a group buy. So it means that through social media, you collect all others. You send some discounts which this app provides, and then this discount accounts, then need to be many users which will buy the same product, and that it can be discounted. Otherwise, there will not be so much discount if there won't be buying so many users. And now I would like to show you more into the detail area of these two the most important Taobao and JD platforms. First, I would like to start with Tmall. So Tmall, I would say it's some kind of Chinese version of Amazon, even though it's much more than just like Chinese version of Amazon. Like we can see here, the majority, like 60% of the users which buy on Tmall are women, and majority of people who are buying it are from first and second tier city. So it means the products on this platform are branded products, and the majority of Chinese who can afford it are the affluent Chinese. And also, as we can see here, the majority of who are buying are Z generation and Y generation. And here what does Tmall have? It's really interesting. It's the Tmall Global. So it's divided on, I would say, on 3 different platform segments of platform. So you have the one app, but then you have classical Tmall, where is all the products are in China. Then there are Tmall Global, which the foreign brands usually sell through cross-border e-commerce. What does it mean, this cross-border e-commerce? It means that products which Chinese customers has bought, they are stationed in the foreign country or in the free trade zone in China, and they are purely produced outside of China. And here I would like just to show you how this platform looks like. Okay, now first we opened the another platform. So here on the left side we can see the Tmall Global platform, and consumer can search and can see from which country its different product is coming. For example, this Aptamil, which is really popular in China, it's coming from Germany, and then it's also written where the product is stationed, and then also on the bottom can be seen different comments and description of product. What is more also interesting, that especially now, which is popular during the coronavirus, the Tmall has established luxury pavilion. What does it mean? Usually luxury brands, they weren't keen to sell their products over the e-commerce platforms, because they perceived that it's really important experience when you come to the shop and you see all the luxury things around, and then that you are prepared to pay so much for such kind of product. Because at the beginning they were thinking that luxury products cannot be sold over the e-commerce. But then Tmall showed the opposite. They established luxury pavilion, and in this pavilion you could see many luxury brands were joining. So they are selling luxury purses, jewelry, and everything in average is more than like 5,000 or 1,000 euros and above. So, and here you can see, for example, then special membership card, which allows also customers to get things a little bit discounted. And also, as you can see here, the pricing looks more like in a luxury design style, black and gold. Especially gold, it's really important in China, because it means like that it's something prosperous. And here I would just shortly like to show you how does it look, this cross-border e-commerce. Because many companies would like to enter to China via cross-border, because the other traditional way through the distributor can be really expensive and also can be really has had a lot of bureaucracy. So the companies and the brands who want to make a first entry to the Chinese market, we would usually recommend them to try if they have especially some fast-moving consumer goods, so the goods which can be used in the daily life, that they go first to the cross-border e-commerce. And also our company is helping different other companies which are from the West or from the Europe to get to the Chinese market in this way. And I will just shortly explain how does it work. So foreign company wants to sell products on the Chinese cross-border platform, for example, Tmall Global. They send their products before they send them to the bonded warehouse. First, they need to send some documentation to the Chinese customs. And when they do that, then all the products go to the bonded warehouse. And then we are directly connected with all these platforms. And so when the Chinese customer make a purchase through the cross-border platform, then all the procedure go directly from the computer, from the center, and everything go really, really smoothly because we cooperate with whole Alibaba ecosystem, as I mentioned before. And this Alibaba ecosystem, it's really flawless. So it means that there is really small possibility of mistake that the product would stop somewhere when it needs to get to the Chinese customer. And also the company which is selling these products can always know where their products are and what is happening with them. Then another important thing which Alibaba has, which also Alibaba started, it's Taobao. Taobao, it's a little bit comparable, I would say, to eBay, because on this platform can be sold also consumer to consumer as an eBay. But there it's really one big important difference. First of all, as you can see here, demography, mostly there are more women than men which are buying on Taobao. But what is also really important here, if you look tier 3 and tier 4 cities, they are buying more than when we look at the Tmall, because here the products are more cheaper and usually sometimes are even not branded, and sometimes maybe you can get even some counterfeit goods. But what is really important, that when you are on Taobao platform, I will show you here on the screen. So when you are on the Taobao platform, and here, for example, if I write that I want to find some honey, and when the honey, it shows me honey, and here, this red thing here, it's from the Tmall platform. So what does it mean? That when I'm searching on Taobao, I will get the hits from both platforms, from Taobao and also from Tmall. And it will be this red small sign that, that if the product is from the Tmall. So there's not, the platforms are not separated because they are the same ecosystem. And this is their biggest competitor to the Tmall. It's Jingdong. There is one big difference between they both platforms sell, I would say, all majority of things which you can think about it. But the main thing is that JD, it's more on, basically it's focused on the consumer electronics. So another thing which is also really important is that they have 2-1-1 program. What does it mean, this 2-1-1 program? It means if the customers order in the morning, they will get their product the same day. And if the customer order before 11 at night, they will get the product already next day till 3 p.m. What does it mean? their logistics, it's, I would say, astonishing, because you can imagine how big and how many consumers are in China, and they are able to deliver most of their products in one day or even in the same day. And they're really doing a lot when they're investing in different technology. So especially, for example, when the COVID started, they were using a lot of, especially in the remote areas, they were using a lot of drones to deliver all the goods which they were ordered through e-commerce. And also in the cities, they established many AI autonomously driven these delivery cars. When you just get to this car, it will send you a message that you will receive the package, and then you will be able to track, similar as a Wolt. When you have delivery, you will be able to track this autonomous car when he will arrive to your place, and then you will just come out and take your package. So it's totally contactless. And this is really big importance when the COVID situation struck out all around the world. I would also like to point out that in China, there are different festivals as we are used to have them in the West. So for example, in the West, we have Black Friday, but in China, for example, now in May, there is totally new, like modern Valentine's Day, 520. Why it's 520? Because Wu are linked, it's similar to like Wo Aini. So it means I love you in Chinese. These numbers means quite similar. So in China, the numbers have, as you can see, really, really important meaning. And then in next month will be one really big shopping festival, 618, which will be on 18th of June, and it's organized by Jingdong. Then other really important festivals are, for example, the wine festival, because, for example, Jiu, it's in Chinese, it's called 9, and also alcohol, it's called Jiu. So just with a different tone. And Jiu, it's 9/9, and it's then 1 week wine festival. Then other things, the most important thing when it comes to the shopping festivals is the Singles Day. It's called Double 11 or Singles Day. It was invented, first of all, by some students in one university, but then Jack Ma adopted it because, for example, if you look here in October, there is a National Day, and there is also, they are doing a lot of shopping. And then on January, there is, but here it's not, in January, it's Chinese New Year, there is a lot of shopping. But then you have here, November, December, which was not in China happening a lot when it comes to shopping. So he decided that on Singles Day, he will give a lot of discounts on the platform, and then they adopted this Singles Day. And this Singles Day grew from, for example, from 2019, when amounted just even less than $1 billion, but I think it's still a lot. It grew to, in 2019, to that they have reached sales of 38 billion in 2 weeks. From 1st of November to 11th of November, they reached 38 billion of sales just on Tmall and Taobao platform. And for example, in 2019, they make first billion, they reached in 1 minute. So you can imagine how many Chinese at that time is shopping that you can reach 1 billion of revenue just in 1 minute at the platform. And it's really happening a lot during this festival. As you can see in the previous festivals, for example, the Jack Ma has performance together with Nicole Kidman, and also other really popular Chinese stars come on this shopping festival, and they have some kind of gala event. And what is really interesting, also Amazon has adopted the similar thing in US, because they find out how Alibaba is doing great and how great sales they are achieving in China. They organized Prime Day concert, and then at that day also they make discounts so the customers in US can buy cheaper, and also it's the event when all then celebrities, singing celebrities in US sing on this kind of event. But what I want to point out here, which is maybe even more important, it's how really huge is Singles Day. Even though we know that US consumers are really keen to shop and buy a lot, we still, if we combine, for example, these figures of Singles Day in 2018, when it reached in one day $30 billion, we can see that if we combine all other 3 big shopping festivals in US, they're still not even almost on the half of the way what it has been sold in Singles Day. So here it can be seen that China, it's really huge market. There is a lot of course, customers, and it can be sold a lot, but definitely also there is a huge competition. And competition is so huge that if you really want to sell, you need to employ KOL. KOL are key opinion leaders, and most of them, they are doing also live streaming, which is gaining a lot of popularity in China. And now I would say this trend, I believe it will also hit Western countries, because Western countries already, they work with the influencers, and also more and more influencers, they are doing, for example, video posts on Instagram, but still there is not so much, I would say, direct communication that you can directly address the live streamer and that he directly answer you, or that he directly makes some promotion and you buy immediately. So there is not this immediate push which in the West, which in China has. So here we can see, for example, during one shopping festival, Double 11, even Kim Kardashian participated together with Chinese live streaming star, which is called Waya Huang. And during this live streaming, they were watching 13 million users this live stream, and they were selling perfume bottles from Kardashian brand, and they sold out all the perfumes just in few minutes. So this is what I want to say, how impactful are key opinion leaders in China. If you want to sell or some product and it's not like so known all around China, you can endorse KOL. Of course, the better they are, the more expensive they are, but still you have opportunity to penetrate the market directly through the KOL. And here you can see how powerful these KOL are. Waya Huang, it's the most powerful KOL in China, and she can sell, here you can see, for 1 billion RMB, 1 billion yuan, just in 1 month. And then here is also another big key opinion leader, which is Austin, which he's selling lipsticks, and he can sell also like 15,000 lipsticks just in 5 minutes. And then you can see that all others, they're not so strong in comparison to these two of them, because these two are the strongest one. So if you want to sell your products in China and you are new on the market, it's really important to consider also to have different kind of key opinion leaders, or in West, which we call them influencers. And when we market to China, we really need to be cautious, because sometimes if we don't understand their culture, we can really miss all the marketing. Here is the example when Dolce & Gabbana posted a commercial when a Chinese model eats pizza, and like they make that she doesn't know how to eat pizza, and they give her chopsticks, and then she tried to cut pizza with chopsticks, and it looked like they are making fun of Chinese. And some of the Chinese audience, they assume that it's even a little bit racistic toward the Chinese consumers. And because of that, all this big clash went out, and all the turmoil on social media started. And at the end, the Dolce & Gabbana, both of their founders, they apologized to the whole Chinese nation because of their mistakes. They didn't understand. They tried to be innovative, but maybe they went over the limit. So always need to consider when you are doing marketing that you need to have experts which know how to market to China. And because of that, we also, our clients always ask them to give us to give us some material that we check that material is really suitable to the Chinese customers. Otherwise, you can make really big mistake, and your brand which you were building for so long time can be immediately destroyed in China. And here is also another example how big influence has Chinese market. Like for example, different claims from the companies, because Nike, for example, has and also Adidas, they wanted to distance themselves with not buying Xinjiang cotton anymore for producing their products, and this make a big spark on social media in China. And then it happened that when they published this exclamation that they will not buying cotton anymore in Xinjiang, from Xinjiang, the sales in April last month, they plummeted down for Nike for almost 60% on the Tmall platform, and for Adidas even for 80% in comparison to the last year of month April. But from the other side, you can see that the local brands gained because of that a lot of traction, and they improved their sales figures a lot in last month. Because of that, you can see here the Li-Ning, they have risen for their sales for 70%, and for Anta they raised their sales for 50% in comparison on the April 1 year ago. So if here you look at the comparison, so Western brands have loosened revenue, and the Chinese brands, and also the brand, not just Chinese brand, but also Fila brand, which it's now in ownership of Anta, and they know how to market everything in this situation. They gained a lot of growth in first quarter 2021. And now let me check. We are towards the end of presentation, so let me for the end check the QR codes. For example, in Germany now they have big issue because like if you get vaccinated, you get the physical paper, and they have the police in Germany say that they will have a big problems because it's easy to counterfeit such kind of documents if they're in physical shape, and that they should do something digital. And China, on the other hand, they have their Alipay and WeChat Pay, and these two apps which are used for payments and also can be used for generating QR codes. And in China, they already at the beginning of last year, almost immediately after the virus struck out all around the world, they established this kind of QR codes. So when the people were traveling around, if they were in contact with somebody who had coronavirus, then also they get immediately yellow or red QR, so that they couldn't travel so freely, and it was much easier to monitor all the infections all around China. And how these QR codes look like. So it's really important that they are generated all the time. They are refreshing. So it means that if you cannot counterfeit such kind of QR code, because it generates when you need to show it at the time. So when, for example, here is the traveler who wants to travel with the train, and then security guard scans him with his phone this QR code, and he can the customer, the traveler cannot counterfeit such kind of code, which is really important when you want to travel around, and not that to prevent different counterfeit products. and QR codes. So this is from today's presentation, more or everything. And now we can go to check the questions which you had during presentation. Okay, first question was, where do they usually place their product reviews, on the store or on the social media? They usually, I would say, on both. They post on the store, there you have the comments at the end. And they also always try to convince consumers, but not just to convince them, but they have, the Chinese, they have in their habit, I would say, in the blood, that they always make a comment when they buy a product at the end of the store. But of course, they, for example, there is one special app which I haven't mentioned it today for example, for beauty products, which is called Red Little Book, or in Chinese Xiao Hong Shu. And for example, there girls post their experiences about the product, how to use it, how to use it, lipsticks, with which dress goes the best. So they use it both. It depends, of course, on the product which you are selling, where it will have then more comments on the store or in the different social media. Can I share the slide afterwards? We need to discuss this with Confucius Institute, so we will let you know. Just please, Philippa, let to the Confucius Institute your email, and we will inform you. There is already an answer. It will be published on YouTube. Okay. Juliana, I don't know for which slide you were asking me, so I will skip this. What is the add value in US or RMB? Here is the question, and the users have the possibility to search for products by using a country filter. For example, could users only look for products made in France or products made in Italy? Yeah, on the Tmall Global, it can be used so that you can also search by the country. The last question is, are consumers, from Rado, are consumers more information driven or emotion driven? I would say most of the time are more at the end emotion driven, but they like to gather before they do, when they buy the things, also they like to gather a lot of information, but they are many times, especially during the live streaming, they're almost totally, I would say, emotion driven. So they say the live streamers, even though of course they are giving the information about the product, but they do also different kind of discounts and so on. And the user usually at that time it's emotion driven when he makes a purchase. Is there any other questions? Okay, if there is no questions. Okay, just a second. Another question, do you see a lot of users who want to buy luxury products, but who want to find new brand looking with country filters? I would say when they are looking new brand, first of all, it really depends which customers we are looking at, because if we look at the most affluential customers, they bought almost every brand which is known, and they will look also for new brands, because the people who just started to buy luxury brands, these even more rich customers, they don't want, for example, to have Blueberry coat anymore or Prada purse anymore. They want have something different which nobody else have, and they will look for such kind of also things, luxury things. And usually they will also use, there is some special apps which they are just segmented just for the luxury things. Polona asks if there are any Slovenian products selling on the mentioned platforms. Yes, they are selling. They are already like also Slovenian products. Some of them they're selling really good. And I believe if also the brands and companies, if they will be prepared to invest more into the marketing, they can have even bigger amount of sales. But here is the always issue when it comes to Slovenian companies. If they start to sell good, if they can really satisfy the demand of the Chinese customers, because if you have really one popular product, it can happen that maybe some Slovenian company won't be able to produce so much as Chinese market wants. Now I think we are a little bit already over time. So if you have some more questions, you can directly write to my email. I already posted on my screen, or also you can contact me via LinkedIn. And I hope you have really get some new knowledge about the Chinese e-commerce and the Chinese digital world. And thank you for your participation and that you stayed with me to the end of my presentation. And now I would give the word to Daria.
So yeah, now you can see that basically also international companies can make mistakes when marketing products to Chinese. So this is why it's even more important to be prepared when it comes to enter the Chinese market. And this is why we also advise you also to ask for the different advices also from the professionals. Here also the CI can help you with organizing trainings to understand the Chinese mindset, and also as well as companies like Domens, they can also help you market your product on the Chinese market. So I would like to thank you to all of you for today's event, and I hope that we gave you a better insight into the Chinese digital world. For any other question, you can send us an email. We put our contact in the chat, and we hope that you will have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Have a all nice weekend also from my side, and thank you one more time. Goodbye.